and there was a terrorist strike. The Prime Minister at that time moved quickly to define what it is. And I know some of the measures that were done, which were never made public, and they moved quickly to contain it. The same Prime Minister, I met him in Nigeria on a visit. And I asked him that why is it that when it comes to Nigeria, what you defined as a terror act in Britain when it happened, why are you offering us farmer herder clash and crisis? Now, let me tell you what the real root reasoning is that Nigerians don't understand. Every Nigerian, every African, we are classified as being
All right, it's State of the Nation, Nigeria. It's another Friday. That's why we always here on Friday, talking about the country with the largest population of Black people. We've said it here so many times. 1 out of every 4 sub-Saharan African is a Nigerian. 1 out of every 6 Black person on the planet is a Nigerian. So we have to keep talking about Nigeria until it gets its act together. And you all know, especially in the last 3 days, last 5 days, last 2 weeks, last 1 month, a lot has been happening, from the issues of genocidal related to Christians in Nigeria, from the coup in Benin Republic, and so many other things. But today we have a guest who is an erudite scholar, no doubt, a man of God, a man of faith. He sits on the board of a lot of NGOs, international NGOs. He's spoken to the US Congress, addressed them on so many occasions. That's why we are bringing him here today. He will know. He says it the way it is, no holds barred, and today we introduce to you Rev Ladi Thompson. Reverend, welcome to State of the Nation on the Atlanta Discuss channel.
Pleasure is mine, sir.
You've been very busy lately, I know, Nigeria must succeed. I like that. So, I mean, we just have to cut the chase and get straight to the point, because when I told my people you were coming, we always compile all these questions. So I have mine, they've written for me, but I'll go straight to, now, what's your response to the ongoing Christian genocide in Nigeria? And what do you believe is the most effective way, to bring an end to the violence in itself?
My response is very simple. I believe that the church, more than anybody else, needs to come to a realization of itself.
Okay.
We need to realize that the mandate of Christ, when he went away, was to call us and establish us as the salt of the earth and the light of the world. So what we're talking about here is the influence. We are influencers primarily, and we're also meant to be those who bring illumination so that people don't stumble, but make progress in the right direction. So my first part of call is the church itself to wake up. Jesus left 2 instructions behind: disciple men and disciple nations. We discipled men and built religious empires. We did not disciple nations. That primarily, if you do a spiritual forensic, is why we're where we're at. So when the church wakes up, we can now shed light. This problem, this genocide, behind it, there's a hyper-dimensional root, which means there's a spiritual portent to it. And that's why it confuses nations, confuses governments. So when the church wakes up, realizes that the mosque is under pressure, and we shine the light, the proper diagnosis will come to the problem. Then we can offer the right prescription instead of what is going on right now, which is a lot of guesswork, patchwork, confusions all over the place.
So what would you rather the church do in lieu of the present predicament that, that's happening? I mean, we know that statistically, we know they've killed more Christians in Nigeria than anywhere else in the world. And I mean, the percentage of the next country to Nigeria is so far away. So what would you rather the church do?
Well, first of all, the church needs to assert itself a bit more because the church is quite irrelevant in Nigeria. It doesn't know it. It makes a lot of noise, but the church has been relegated into irrelevance. First of all, for the church to get back to where it's supposed to be, the representation of the church in the presidency is non-existent. There's a message there. If you go to the Aso Rock Villa Chapel, you'll find out that it has, ever since this president came into being, the chapel has been shut down and the mosque is functioning. So it's an atrocity because representationally and figuratively, it tells you what is really going on, that Christians have nothing to offer right now. So first of all, I need them to reopen that Aso Rock Villa Church, and then we need to appoint a chaplain. This is at the kind of time when a chaplain in the presidency would make all the difference. So we don't want them to go and bring a ladan and then pretend he's a pastor and then appoint him as chaplain. But let's start from there as part one. Then part two, the church needs to enlighten the president of Nigeria. This is not a time for emergencies. This is a call for war. It's a new war form. All over the world, it was dedicated. It's a dedicated truth. The global resurgence of religious extremism, Islamism, is documented globally, and every nation responds accordingly. Now, Nigeria is in denial. So first of all, we need to let the president know that if what you have just done is declare a state of emergency, you are wasting everybody's time. The Nigerian citizens may clap and applaud when you change generals and all that, but we've told you that this new war form is no longer a case of Clausewitz, Trinity of War. We're talking about the textbooks that generals used to train. This new warhead is more clever, it's more ruthless, its scope, its span is totally sharper defined. And unless Nigeria realizes this and shows us responses appropriate, I can tell you that at the root of it all is what we call the devaluation of human worth. That's what has made this very easy in Nigeria. Every other nation of the world, until Goodluck Jonathan's time, the definition of terrorism in Nigeria was so watery that you could hardly ever convict anybody. And when they finally defined terrorism, at the tail end of President Jonathan's tenure, when it's finally defined, we come into a new dispensation where ultimately they believe they have a magic wand. When they capture an enemy that is slaughtering Nigerian soldiers, they claim to de-radicalize them and then absorb them into the army. Are we that stupid? Everything that right now points at defeat. Everything going on in the country, every response so far, the previous presidency, this one, points to defeat. Now, that defeat, I believe, is something that is orchestrated. So everything we're watching that's playing out right now politically is a part of it. The Hydra, when you know it properly, defeats and collapses nations from within. And frankly speaking, Nigeria has reached the final stage when the nation is now ready to be collapsed from within. At that final stage, what you see is what they call tragic optimism. You can see now that a lot of Nigerians are despondent. They're just living from day to day. They don't know what to do. Their will has been broken completely. You see, transmarginal inhibition. What has happened to them is that we have been processed as a nation while the church has been sleeping and is still sleeping.
Interesting. So, I mean, I've heard people say, for example, especially people that are sympathetic to the president, people from the southwestern part of Nigeria, which you are from, which I am from, that I'm talking to Yorubas, I said, oh, this thing is political, that in 2015, that's why everything became so bold and strong to oust President Jonathan, which they succeeded in doing at that time. That this time around, it's to push President Tinubu out, that it's just politics, that there's nothing more to it, that the people making all the hues and cries are just embellishing it, that there's really no substance to it. Would you agree with that?
That response is as imbecilic. That's a real word. That response is as imbecilic as the farmer-herder theory being the root cause of what is going on here. I remember when 7/7 happened in Britain and there was a terrorist strike. The Prime Minister at that time moved quickly to define what it is. And I know some of the measures that were done, which were never made public. And they moved quickly to contain it. The same Prime Minister, I met him in Nigeria on a visit. And I asked him that why is it that when it comes to Nigeria, what you defined as a terror act in Britain when it happened, why are you offering us farmer-herder clash and crisis? Now, let me tell you what the real root reasoning is that Nigerians don't understand. Every Nigerian, every African, we are classified as being emotional. We're classified as being intuitive. They say that we are unscientific and that we are incapable of critical thought.
Oh, wow.
So when they process us, they float narratives to fit the level of architecture of thought that they believe that we have, which is not quite well developed enough. I mean, if you know the Hegelian theory, we're not really fully developed people yet. So our thinking is a bit, So that's why anybody will come and say, oh, this is political. We've said something. It's a hydra. This hydra has a head in politics. This hydra is opportunistic. It has a head in the military. It has a head in education. It has a head in governance. It has a head in finance. It's multiple-headed. So if you pick only one head, and I told the story once of, we had a meeting many years back in Nigeria. That's 2000 and something, very early, 2001 or so, when we brought out a textbook showing a hero, an approved textbook, federal government approved textbook that was being used in the Nigerian schools. In it, there was a hero who would capture people and then either offer that he will slaughter them or they will convert to Islam. Gandoki was that story.
Right.
It was planted in the textbooks. When we allowed it, we had this private meeting, just like a consensus building meeting. Then the journalist printed it. His sack letter was waiting for him. He was taken to court. Look, the people who were printing the textbook for the federal government reclaimed all the books quickly, printed a new version, removed that story swiftly, presented the new version in court, forgetting that there's an old second-hand market for books. So when the original was presented, they were very embarrassed. They thought it was only that journalist. So when there was a backlash and fellow journalists weighed in on it, quickly the judges went quiet. Quickly the police mellowed. Quickly the publishing house, made a reverse. What am I trying to point out here? Do you know the combination of heads that moved on that guy's case? And if not that, he had a little bit of backup and an understanding that had been given of what the problem is, that hydra would have choked him as it has done to many. So when someone says this is political, it's imbecilic. Because it's not just political, it's also social, it's also financial, it has a head in practically all the pillars that uphold any nation. It has to do that to collapse that country. And normally, these other heads would have moved into action many years, decades, before one gunshot is fired. I can tell you my experience in Plateau State when we went to give advance warning. Year 2000. They said it can't happen. Oh, this is JOS, Jesus Only State. If we start tracing it back, I'll tell you that when anyway, let's just go on. I mean, because if we start getting practical, we'll see how far we have gone to sleep. That's what has aided this thing.
All right,
we shouldn't win.
I like when you mentioned the British earlier on, and I'm going to ask you a 2-in-1 now. One of them is, you've been vocal about the intervention of Trump. I mean, you said The intervention will be of help. That is a landmark opportunity. I'm paraphrasing now that Nigeria should seize the opportunity with everything we have. That might be the last opportunity to rectify all the problems we have. Now, that my first question today is that how do you plan to engage the U.S. government in addressing the issue? I know you've been talking and all that. That's one. One B will be where British colonized, and it's common knowledge that the British, handed power to the North. It's no more like a cliche or guesswork again. It's brazen, The British have always favored the North and all that. So in lieu of everything happening generally, the Americans, like the president said, have a completely different opinion from all indication compared to the British. And also the Americans in the past have deferred to the British on issues relating to Nigeria, but right now it's looking like Europe is weak now. The Americans want to address the issue. So the question now is this: what are your expectations from America? One, two, what role do you think the British are playing right now? Because they seem very quiet.
The British are not quiet. If you go to what the BBC has been doing recently,
Okay.
the BBC is still floating the narrative that there's no genocide.
Okay.
So if you really look at Britain very well, it's a flashback to the days of human slavery. Britain contains both the best of people and the worst of people. Wow. It's an amazing contradiction about the UK. Out of it comes the best and out of it comes the worst. Now, why am I saying this? It's because the colonial policy, let me tell you how terrible the colonial policy used to be. Ernest Coley gave an interview just before Nigeria's independence. And he mentioned that the British methodology of floating narratives was so thorough that British civil servants who will be coming in on BOAC then,
the airline,
some to southern Nigeria, others to northern Nigeria, you'd find out that there was an enmity between civil servants going to southern Nigeria and civil servants going to northern Nigeria. They wouldn't even talk to each other.
Oh, wow.
Trust me. So you're dealing with a nation who holds some of the formula by which the Hydra worked in the past, but this is a new and improved version of what they had. You see, the British built Pax Britannica. They built it on Pax Romana. Pax Romana was a piece of the world at Roman. It lasted 200 years. Pax Britannica, it was said that the sun could not set on the British Empire. There was a time the spread was so wide across the world. Now, the point is this. Both of them were built on the exploitation of the fact that all men are not born equal, that some are worth more than others. And of course, we were at the bottom of the ladder of the humanity organogram that they had. So the British exploited that for many years until the Second World War, when America had to come and help them. They took soldiers from Nigeria and Africa and everywhere. And after the Second World War, there was an attempt to continue the subjugation of our people, to continue to milk our nations. But God did two things for us. First of all, the nations of Africa woke up and said, no, you can't continue like that. Secondly, God raised up conscientious voices. First, it was a Nigerian who conscientized William Wilberforce. When William Wilberforce got up, then the Clapham sect joined him. And they worked together for abolition, the abolitionists. So from two ends, the agitation of the politicians, but preceded by the voice of conscience in Britain that slavery was dehumanizing. So they gave us, there was a tussle between the Christian interest in Britain. What's going on in America right now? We're going to learn from this. The Christian force in Britain was benevolent. They persuaded the British Navy to release 1/6 of its fleet to go and parade the waters of West Africa. That's how Ajayi Crowther, who was kidnapped by the Fulani in 1821, Ajayi Crowther was rescued by the British. So you see what I'm saying, two extremes again.
Yeah.
Now, the Clapham sect were able to persuade the royal family. So Prince Albert became the Queen's consort, became very popular because he too began to cry out for abolition. Okay, so the Navy, the British Navy, parading the waters, was the one that rescued the poor young Ajayi, age 12, kidnapped by Fulani, 1821. So when we're talking about this hideout, we need to understand that it's been upgrading. It was there before, it was upgraded. He was taken to Freetown, which was bought by the Christians, where he became a Christian, and they helped to stabilize and send back. But the political end of it in Britain was not happy with the idea of the colony that the Christians had described. So what they did was they used Topmangoldi, the father of Nigeria. Is a name most people don't know. His name is Topmangoldi. And let me show you the occult dimension that we have to deal with here. When Topmangoldi was dying, he was a student of the Roman Empire. He built and designed Nigeria after the East Indian company that looted India, killed about 60-something million people there to make the trillions. I can't remember, was this $1 trillion that was made out of that. Now, that man was the one who designed Nigeria. When he was about to die, all the papers he used to design Nigeria, everything, he put them together, the diaries, the notes, built a bonfire and burnt everything. Then called his children and warned them that if he missed a scrap of paper, if anybody publishes it out of them, he placed a curse on them. So you see what we're dealing with in Nigeria now is the fact that at independence, Obafemi Awolowo made note that the country that was handed over to us had within it the forces of its own disintegration. We were built to keep failing without falling. And he expected leaders to arise because they were simply liberators. They were not founding fathers. Nigeria has never had founding fathers. And that's why those cracks that existed, when Osama bin Laden brought out a newer version, superior to the Usman Danfodio, it has turned Nigeria easily. It's opportunistic. It knows your history. It knows what to go for, your grievances, you name it. You will be fighting one another before you know it. If you're not careful, you're gone. Now, the kinetics, boots on ground. Well, thank God for Donald Trump's intervention. You know why?
What?
On the global scale, Nigeria had been traded already. There's something called the pacification of terrorists with territories. When America was pulling out of Afghanistan, there are many things that happened under the Obama administration to Africa that people don't want to know about. Those policies were very crafty, but none of it lifted life for us in Africa. In fact, it was under his dispensation that the Boko Haram was being sponsored, even in Nigeria. Take this from me. This is global politics. So normally when an American president comes in, it doesn't matter whether he's Republican or whether he's Democrat, there are certain things that they follow. Now, everybody knows, according to the thesis of the pundits, that a new dawn is coming. If you read the book written by Kissinger, The New World Order that's coming, they know it's coming. Clash of Civilizations. Francis Fukuyama, last man standing. Now, they expect that to dictate what life is going to be like, whoever wins, just like after the Second War, America dictated a lot. So right now, before Trump came, they thought it was either the Chinese dragon, the Russian bear, the sword of Islamism, or what they call Westphalia, that was going to dictate the new day. Nobody saw a Trump coming. So when Trump arrived out of the blues, contrary to every rule, contrary to all conventions, he came out with a uniqueness that has never been seen in a long time in American politics. Now, it may sound strange to people who don't know that the mind of Christ, that the way God operates at times can be baffling. God uses the foolish things of this world to confound those who are wise in their eyes. Listen to me. If Trump had been a normal American president, he would not speak of Nigeria. Now, there are a lot of people who don't know that what we are doing here is beyond politics. The survival of the giant of Africa is at stake. We were already 95% gone. The hideout infiltrated us in high places. Even the incumbent had struck a deal politically. And after his tenure, they would have taken over. And you can bet me that would have been the end of the country as we know it, the giant of Africa and all our hopes. The religious liberties would have gone. So here comes a stray bullet, DJT, who now comes and points out two things that are amazing. Because unknown to them, what they were arguing about is that what is being set right now is the template of the new world order that is coming. The Third World War that is coming up is a new kind of war that's not going to be fought from the head. It's going to be fought from the heart. These are the dress rehearsals. You find out that the Islamic soldiers are not fighting from the head. There's an army all over the world. They don't wear any uniform. They've been indoctrinated to have certain habits. Some have been radicalized. Some, if you ever watch the Manchurian Candidate, some have prompts planted in them. And once you allow this thing to spread any more than it has spread, when the D-Day comes, nation after nation from within will continue to collapse. But America came and said, wait a minute. Islamism is a supremacist agenda. It is not an Islamic agenda. It's supremacist because it uses the Islamic faith as a cover. In 1090 something, Pope Urban, can't remember, 11th or 12th, whatever, Pope Urban, Council of Clermont, made a proclamation. And you remember then that people were going to be given absolution, they were going to be given all sorts of perks, including money, if you went to fight in Jerusalem, if you went to the east, to free Jerusalem from the Muslims. Now, you know that Jesus Christ never raises an army of that sort. So what happened was that you mix an ideology, that's Christianity, you mix it with a political agenda and a socio-economic move. What results is lethal. Because once you mix religion is the only thing that allows you to kill somebody, and you don't need any reason other than God told me to do it. So the primitive form of Islamism that was interpreted like that is what has gone on rampage. So here comes Trump, who says, wait a minute. Have you ever read 1 Corinthians chapter, have you ever read Romans chapter 13?
No, I've read
where the Bible says that your president is a minister of God and that he's told he is licensed to kill 007. He's not meant to handle the sword in vain. Evildoers, manslayers, abductors. The Bible tells you all these things. They are not supposed to go scot-free. If they do, he's carrying the sword in vain. So what Trump has done is to interpret the scriptures to show us that Romans chapter 13 says, President of Nigeria, you are carrying a sword in vain. The righteous are dying. You are not doing anything. I have a bigger sword than yours. I will enforce what God told us to do in your country. That's actually what Trump has done, number one. Then number two, what the Hydra exploits to destroy people is by hyping and taking advantage of the concept of the Muslim Ummah. Look, one of the beautiful things about Islam all over the world, if you enter a city, you are hungry, you're homeless, can't afford a hotel, look for a mosque. As long as you say Assalamu alaikum, you can recite the, they will gladly give you a place to sleep because of the kinship that's global based on the religion. Now, Islamism takes advantage of that. Now, on the side of the Christian church, hello, denominations, religious empires, people who speak from both sides of the mouth. See, there is not unity of any sort like that. There's a disconnection from the body of Christ. So when you go to, which scripture is that now? I said Romans 13 for the other one. This will be 1 Corinthians 12 now. The concept of the body of Christ has been a floating amorphous concept. But then all of a sudden, here comes Trump, who gives it power by declaring that, wait a minute, the body of Christ is real. If you slaughter a Christian in Nigeria, it affects a Christian in America because we are the same body. So I have the moral right to go into Nigeria to rescue Christians. After all, the foundation faith on which America is built, borrowed from God in his office as creator. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal and they have certain inalienable rights. Now, to be an American is not a geographical expression. It's taken from scripture, from the book of Genesis. That's how we stopped slave trade. And that's how we're going to stop this one as well.
Wow. Interesting. So, I mean, I'm just, I'm short of words, I've never seen it from this perspective. But if Trump comes in and every day is looking likely, that it's going to happen, and I mean, we all should be worried, we all should be concerned. I'm thinking of the end game now. What if, because I've read, and I've asked some of my past guests that I've read and I've heard from some reliable sources that some of these Islamists, these genociders, hide ammunition in barracks, military barracks, in palace of emirs and sultan. Now, we've heard report that there's a lot of reconnaissance playing in Nigeria, in the southwest, middle belt, that, and we know Trump will come home very soon, He has said it, and he likes to. We can see what's happening in Venezuela, what have you. Now, my question is, if they come in eventually and, see their arms in this palace, they blow it, there's some arms belonging to the Islamists in this barracks, they blow it. And what if it leads to maybe bringing down this government, but there's anarchy, overall anarchy in Nigeria? Because most places, historically, America went to Vietnam, we know what happened. Iraq is still in our head. Afghanistan too. These things don't usually end well. Fine, there might not be boots on ground, but overall, for already fragile Nigeria, don't you think that's another recipe for anarchy? Over to you, sir.
No. The Bible says this. It says a great door and effectual has been opened for Nigeria. But the Bible says also there are many adversaries, both without and within. This is what you're talking about. Now, don't forget this. You mentioned earlier on that it was normative for America to follow the policies that were influenced by Britain a lot all over the world in terms of their global policies, right?
Yep.
Good. Now, all of a sudden, here comes a president who a while back told them in Europe that you guys are good at starting wars. You push everybody around, you go start wars, you have killing and all over the whole place, and then you don't really get anything done that is right. Now, that covers all the examples you're talking about.
Okay.
Now, I want to tell you that there's a much more intelligent approach to this. And this is where Nigeria comes in. Listen, the rescue that kinetics can do at best is 37 to 40-something% to cure this problem. I told you it's a word that's first from the heart, not from the head. So it is not, look, you can't get a wife and get a relative of yours who pay for his marriage, buy them the clothes and everything, and then even give them a house, give them a car. Are you now going to follow him into the bedroom? I mean, that's why I said they look at us as being the whole world. Look, let me tell you something. The Islamists, they're very confident because they look at Africans. They look at us. These people are emotive, intuitive. Actually, the Zanj, that's what they call us. So therefore, the Zanj are not quite human yet. They are more like animals. And if you listen to how they Ibn Khaldun, go and check how the Arab philosophers, how they capture who we are in their eyes, which is what is playing out in their playbook right now. So the truth is this. How can we stop our own people from being so predictable, like what we're doing again now? This is where I'm looking at those who have been in the diaspora, those who have lived in civilized societies, as it were, places where there's value to life, places where there's, even in America, the fact that the Liberty of Speech, Freedom of Information Act, places where you've lived, where you have seen how a nation can run, where diversity can live together, a plurality, and you've seen systems that if you try to tweak the system wrong, the system auto-corrects itself. What is the use? This is why I got annoyed. I was preaching in a church some years ago, and here was a Nigerian preacher who was with me in America, and he was talking about property, wealth. I mean, in a way that when I picked the microphone, I shook my head. I said, do you guys even talk to African Americans to learn that there was a time when people of your color could not even own a home, own land in this country?
Could not vote.
Do you know that it was God and conscientious men on both sides of the color bar? If there was no Abraham Lincoln, if the founding fathers had not put what they did, if Abraham Lincoln in 1863 had not signed Emancipation, in the Civil Rights era, when Dr. King came, did you hear the excellence of spirit with which Dr. King led the Civil Rights era? Which, of course, I mean, right now it has even dwindled in America, of course. However, the examples are there. So, what is the use of people who are still grumbling? See what Nigeria did to me. Yeah. Look, try to get Africans, Nigerians involved in putting back home. Yet, you will forever be not reckoned as really of much value in any nation of the world until the nations of Africa demonstrate the fact that we can build viable nations where the value of human worth is highly respected. Now, this behooves, it is the diaspora that has a card to play. It's not just a matter of sending money home. When home collapses, there'll be no home to send money to. And that's the path we're going on right now. Now, for those who have been in America, I believe that we're going to be, first of all, calling on the ministers. Anybody who has enjoyed the American experience and is still not concerned about what is going on in Nigeria deserves to have their American passports revoked. Honestly. Because how do you go to a strange land where other people fought for the liberties you are enjoying? And just because of the economic hardships that drove you out of Nigeria, just because of certain things which, of course, were programmed into the nations. And the only thing is that we were gullible. That's if any crime that we committed, our thinking was never deep enough. Okay? But you come here, you prosper, you're a doctor, you're a lawyer, you're an attorney, you're whatever it is, you're doing pretty well. And then the same American now lets you know that the foundation on which they built their nation is the reason why they're going into Africa, to your country. And we don't think we need to come together to advise this nation that there's something called the war of narratives. And that if you go with boots on ground and you go with kinetics alone, when you have left, the same problem will just take over again. Why? It's like a cancer. You cannot cure a cancer 95%. The 5% will multiply and grow again. So there is a role for Nigerians here to play. I know we don't really have many official lobby groups here, but there are pathways in Washington. There are Christians that the Christian pastors, ministers here can work with in Washington in a unified, solid block. Not the normal cacophony of voices, where each man thinks that he's, a Goliath, which is actually an offshoot of the kind of programming and the sufferings and the inferiority complex that is a part of the enculturation program of the Nigerian. Now, so right now, we believe you've been here long enough, men like yourself. You've been here long enough to have learned a thing or two, and you need to join hands with us, myself and others who are coming in from the continent of Africa, to mold opinion, build consensus in Washington, and back it with numbers, okay? So that they can realize that, look, let's do the war of narratives. A book of mine is coming out soon. It's called The Parable of the Two Eagles. Actually, that's all we need to give to America. Why? Because Nigeria is supposed to be an American-style democracy. The influence of Jimmy Carter, if I remember well, on Obasanjo was the reason why Nigeria's constitution, quote, is supposedly styled after the American democracy. The only difference is this. America is not a democracy. It's a democratic republic. But Nigeria don't know that. So there are many firewalls. There are many intricate details in the DNA of America that Nigeria needs. And we need to help. Nigeria needs to come to America and tell America, you shall hold this truth to be self-evident. It's an eternal truth. That all men, you didn't say Americans, all men are created equal. Can you please come and back it up? We don't only need your guns. We need your ethical governance, the policy of ethical governance. We need government efficiency more than you need it in America. We need highly advanced forensics. I'm talking about tools, analytical tools. I'm talking about financial tools. So that whatever we budget in Nigeria, if you use the money to buy a bottle of Coca or a bottle of soft drink or anything, it will show up immediately. So we're not just talking about boots on ground or missiles or demonstration of firepower. No, we're talking about the transfer of something. Number one, the truth that all men are created equal, all over North, South, East, and West. Too many young Nigerians are suffering in Northern Nigeria. They'd never had a chance from when they were born. So we need to go into the war of narratives. Make sure that we fight the war of narratives side by side in preparation before the kinetics. And when it finally comes, then we can continue and then create the greatest nation, an improvement on the American model. The world has an opportunity right now. There are 3 countries in Africa that should be used by America as their model sites: Liberia, Nigeria, and Ethiopia. Ethiopia was a gateway of Christianity. As we speak right now, 1.2 million Christians were killed in Ethiopia, in the Tigray region, between 2022 and this year. 1.2, and never reported in media. So the same Hydra is operating in Nigeria, is operating in Ethiopia, and Liberia was founded in 1822 by American interests.
Right.
So of what value is it if the nation that America birthed in Africa is one of the worst places to be in the world? So right now we need to bring the two eagles together: the bald eagle, the American eagle,
the American eagle, and the Nigerian,
and the Nigerian green eagle, the Nigerian eagle.
that's fantastic. But you see, in all this, I mean, I'm sure something will happen. I might not be sure. I'm not a soothsayer. I might not be well detailed into what the country will. I still told some people today that I don't know why politicians are looking at 2027 election. There are a lot of issues that have to be dealt with, in the immediate, and anybody that is patriotic, anybody that is intelligent and smart, should look at the immediate, because the way I see it, I think the Hausa Fulani, especially those of us from the Southwest, we just call them Mala, we underrate them. They're also regrouping, they are planning, they are strategizing also. You understand? They and I think they're more united possibly. But what I'm trying to say is that after all said and done, we're looking at, let's say, in the next 1 year, where do you think Nigeria will be? Let's say all these things happen. Let's say DJT comes to the rescue and all that. Do you still see us having a President Tinubu, or you think Nigeria will still be enmeshed in what's happening? What's your positive view of future Nigeria, so to say, in empirical terms?
Let's put it like this: cowards,
Mm.
cowardly people, compromisers, look for the future in the past. I like what the Sheikh of Dubai said once. He said, when you are faced by a problem, you have two options. You can look at what other people have done, emulate them, and apply those solutions. He said, but on the alternative, you can put on your thinking cap and look at something that has never been done before. Something that has never, ever appeared on the face of the earth, propose it, apply it, and do much better than anybody else. A great door and effectual has been opened. The weakest link is church and its leadership in Nigeria right now. Why? The best future Nigeria for Nigeria right now, and the opportunity is there, is an innovative application of creativity with disciplined execution. What am I saying? We are here today because of systemic problems. Where Nigeria is today, we are there because of systemic problems. So we have an opportunity right now. We would be stupid to think we need another election. That's what I said the last elections. Okay? We will be stupid to think we need another election. And I did say when that election that's quote election was concluded, that frankly speaking, things were just going to get worse. We were going to become even more corrupt. I said so that the national flag, the national anthem, everything will reek of corruption. And I don't think anything else, was easily foreseen. So right now, we would be, frankly speaking, we must be idiots if Nigerians right now, if all we're thinking of is the next election. There's no solution there. It's like a man has Ebola and cancer and something mixed together, and HIV. Then you give him Panadol. And he says, I took Panadol. Excuse me. We have an opportunity right now. That's what I'm talking about, the bald eagle and the
great eagle.
I'm telling you now that we can reformat and create a nation, the first of its kind in the world, where diversities will be better managed than in America, where a Muslim will feel safe, where Christian will be utterly safe, where males, females, children, everybody would know that their lives have value. Now, let me correct one misinterpretation, because a lot of people keep looking to the past for solutions. You see, let me say this clearly: the devil is not stupid. He's steering you into that past because he will devour you more there. If we are wise, we should look to a future, not the past. Now, the problem of Nigeria is this. The wealth of Nigeria, the greatest influences holding Nigeria today lying in the hands of people who are 65 years and older, who form 4.1% of the population. And what it has done is that they learned this from the British, and this 4.1% out of them have weaponized poverty. So having weaponized poverty, the average Nigerian is helpless, he's hopeless. I mean, he hardly knows he can keep him body and soul together alone, and his life has no value, as you saw demonstrated at the Lekki toll gate. If it happens again, the same thing will happen again. But this is funny because we have 70% of Nigerians are under 35 years of age.
Yeah, that's true.
So doesn't that tell you that this opportunity, not just the coming of America with boots or with his kinetic, with his superior firepower, but the fact that we need to go into this war of narratives. I was in Ahmadu Bello University, and I can tell you something. Forget that nonsense of mala nonsense. First of all, I didn't realize I was a Southerner until I went into Ahmadu Bello University. That's when I realized, oh, that's a Southerner. And I began to hear all sorts of stuff. So I said, who are you? They said they are Northerners. When I went to do research later on, I found out that all my friends became Northerners in April 1900, when Lugard established his camp not far from the palace of the Emir of Zazzau. Up until then, they were not Northerners. The Northern Protectorate was created by Britain. So what am I trying to point out to you? When it comes to social constructivism, when it comes to shaping the future, those who understand programming, and we've been working on a program for Nigeria, a new nation, with my friends across the world. We've been putting heads together. How do we introduce a new program? I can tell you that if we take the best of Nigeria all together, we take the youth together, we teach the youth, in 6 weeks, the president will be very cooperative with Nigerians, with youth. It will be. Because if he doesn't, he will realize that no matter how shambolic the democracy is, there are things that can be done when the will has been strengthened. Already when America piped up, what happened to Nigeria was this. The hopelessness disappeared. People have begun to hope. But the leaders, the traditional leaders who think for people, are trying to confuse people. Church leaders with 30 pieces of silver who are eating from both sides of the mouth. See? Now they forget that all those factors can be neutralized. And when they are neutralized, and people are properly ideated with a wisdom from above, from God, people are rescued from the congregation of the dead. By the time the people stand up, we will have a new nation that was stronger in construct, structurally, in magnificence. There will have been none of its kind on the face of the world. In strength, it will be unrivaled. And I'm saying to you that the truth that all men are created equal is not the preserve of America. It's an eternal truth for all parts of the globe and all men who want their lives to be valued. So when we build our own version of the democratic republic, when we build our version, we will make a quantum leap to the forefront of global civilization. And nobody will have a problem with it. Because instead of the very carnivorous, cannibalistic mentalities of the past that always set brother against brother, Africa, like, what's his name? The one who died in South Africa said something when he was murdered. Steve Biko.
Steve Biko, yeah.
Yeah, he said something. He said it will be Africa that's going to give governance a more human face when our turn comes. So we must welcome the intervention, a great dawn, effectual from Donald Trump. He deserves something better than a Nobel Peace Prize. Because listen to me, if Nigeria makes it, West Africa will stand. If West Africa stands, Africa will see a new day. But as we speak today, about 120-something thousand babies are born in Africa daily. 130-something thousand babies are born in Africa daily, born to a promise of a short lifespan, absence of healthcare, poor education. His diet is not guaranteed, no food security. How can we, from day to day, look at Abuja in Nigeria? They are still partying, carousing. Is that the mien that a leadership is supposed to have? When your young boys are in the war front dying on a daily basis, young girls are being raped, the country is being destabilized, and there's this gung-ho celebratory, mood in the air. No. As I'm speaking right now, it will be wise for us to push for the recognition of a state of war in Nigeria, without which even the president is powerless to do what has to be done.
Well, I have one more question for you, but before I ask that question, I need to ask you. You've said it so many times: the president is powerless. I've heard people say the president of Nigeria, based on the way things are, based on the constitution, is the most powerful man in the world. He can do and undo. He has the power of life and death. So, I mean, Bola Tinubu, for all intents and purposes, has shown at least some semblance of political sagacity from time for as long as we can remember. Why is it such a difficult thing for him to stamp his foot on the sand of time, at least on area of security and what have you?
You see, it's very easy to be a local champion when you block out the rest of the world. After weaponizing poverty, the majority, 61% of the nation, lives under the poverty line. So when you know how to weaponize poverty and you know how to use the leader of Mammon very well, it's easy to be a local champion and bully people and batter them into submission. And you will look very brilliant. But between you and I, a country of 220-something million people, at best, we know he's not up to 5-6 feet tall. Let's even give him 5 feet 8. Okay? At best, as an individual, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the man, let's say he's 5 feet 8. Okay? How old is he? We're not even really sure, about what his age is, but let us be even gracious and put him at 65. Now, okay, let's be even fair to him. Let's say a 70-year-old man, 5 feet 8 inches. At this phase in life, he doesn't even have the physical strength to dominate his own family if it was based on brute strength. So the question you want to ask yourself is, how do oligarchies function? How do despots function? How do corrupt nations function? And once you have found the key to that, you can collapse it easily. So what is happening is that the darkness of poverty, the darkness in which Nigeria has been, enshrouded for years, a light has come to pierce it. Thank you, Donald Trump. God has sent us a light that has pierced it, and all of a sudden, Nigerians realize that their lives have value too. See what I'm saying? So now that is true, you'll find out that this is the reason why. This is a local problem. The Hydra is global. It's a global problem with the local face. So a local champion, let's put it in a better way. You know that you can be playing football in your area, and every evening, no football boots or anything. You know how it is now, in Africa. And young men are dribbling on the field and all that in your local area. Now, who's going to go and field you in this area? Do you think if they took you from the Surulere football championships, soccer championships, where you are shining, and they ask you and then transport you to play in the Premiership? You think if you get into the Premiership, you think you will shine? Leave that story. As long as Nigeria is what it is, listen, when we rearrange Nigeria, men like Tinubu will never again ascend to the presidency. For you to ascend to the presidency of Nigeria, there are sterling qualities mirrored in the Omoluabi ethos of the Southwest. You must at least qualify for that to help us protect the lives of people. Because I will never forget, Baba Fashona's daughter was killed by Fulani. And in those days, because he was looking to become president, he got there and said, look what the Fulani did. He looked and said, I don't see any Fulani. And told the line of his ambition. Ambition is able to blind the visions of men. So we can't afford such persons. In the months ahead, we will need an assurance because we know his sagacity, we know his skills. But this is no longer a local football. This is Premiership now.
Your good friend, Professor Pato, told me, he's been on this show at least 6 times, a regular. He's always mentioned that our problem is failure of leadership. And he went as far as saying not just political leadership. Most times he blamed the elite, but he would talk traditional institution, religious institution, some of which you have mentioned that the church leadership in Nigeria really has compromised, and they probably are not saying the right thing. Because maybe in most cases are politically affiliated. Now, my last question to you is this. We agree there's failure of leadership. We agree that things are in Nigeria are battered almost beyond repairs. And I'm intentionally not talking about Queen Bene and all that, because those are just symptoms of, whatever the foundational issues in Nigeria that scattered everywhere. So what I'm asking you is, what message do you have for Nigerians who are feeling frustrated and hopeless in the face of the current crisis? And how can they contribute to the effort to save this country, especially when you use the word like control the narrative? That's my last question.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, I respect Professor Patu Tomi a lot. He's also a mentor, as it were, a friend and a mentor to me, as it were.
Yeah.
And we have had reason to work on one or two, three things together. These are the kind of people that we must thank God that Nigeria has. Nigeria has many people like that, capable people like that. Now, well, he has written books on leadership, and they say these things, but I've always said to them that I will beg to agree to disagree or disagree to agree. And I'll tell you why. They are right. It's a function of leadership in a peculiar way. The challenge that Nigeria has is a systemic problem. It's a program. Look, the mathematization of inquiry is the weakness of the African leadership. If you mathematize inquiry, you would know how to establish a template of governance that will continue to live after you have gone. If you look at all African, there's no scarcity of leadership quality all over Africa from the days of them Leopold Songo.
True.
Go back all the way.
Sedasenko, yeah.
Yes, Siaka Stevens, you name it. We've never had the dearth of Magufuli. I mean, look at the man in Rwanda. We've never had any shortage of good leaders. That's true. But this is the challenge. They don't understand that there's something called programming. You see, programming means that after you have gone, your legacy continues. So if you write a superior program, America is a program, Britain is a program. Successful nations are programs. Failure nations are failure programs. So this is why at one time was, collaborating with him, and we still hopefully will revive it. We'll give you an example. The greatest leader that Nigeria has ever produced, his name is hardly ever mentioned. If we emulate him and we do programming, then we will have the best nation in the world.
Who is that leader, sir?
His name, they used to call him Gustavus Vassa, his slave name.
Oh, wow.
His real name was Olaudah Ikiano. Now, that is a bastardization of his real name. He was kidnapped at age 11 in Iseke. He taught, look, throughout the slave passage, the middle passage of slavery, he kept his wits about him. He ended up working hard, real Igbo man. As a slave, he set up small trade and bought his own freedom. They cheated him first time. He didn't curse, he didn't argue. He raised money again through trade and bought his freedom a second time. Not only that, he taught himself how to read and write. He was the one appearing before British Parliament. He wrote a book, The Interesting Narrative of Gustavus Vassa, Olaudah Ikiano. Go and see the quality of that book. It was translated into 8 languages. He provided the leadership that opened the way for the creation of Nigerian state today. So what am I trying to say is that he maintained his humanity. He refused to succumb to the narratives that in those days that Africans were not, quite there. All right. So, and he described what real Igbo life was. The genuine Igbo enculturation program in his book is not what is in Nigeria today. So one of the projects that I was working on, I was hoping, and I still know we need the Igbos in Nigeria. We need to reprogram, go back to the program that produced the great. Look, there were some people called the Sons of Africa. They were the ones who helped William Wilberforce, Granville Sharp, Thomas Fowler Buxton, the Clapham sect, the abolitionists. These were the guys who are actually the architects of abolition in Britain. Who was their leader? This fellow. He was kidnapped age 11, but he was so erudite. He became a Christian. He had a dissertation, a thesis. He used the argument. Look, he would do a comparative analysis of his native beliefs with Christianity, and then he would make a presentation that made the Christians in Britain to bow their heads in shame. Apart from that, his morality was excellent. He was so honest. His diplomacy, good Lord. He knew how to handle words and situations. So when I look at what the Igbos are presenting today, and you look at the original, Igbos are part of those who should provide leadership for the new Nigerian nation. If only they will go back and let us learn and improve on the greatest leader that Nigeria ever had that has never been documented. Nobody is of the stature of Oladua Ikianu till today. Not even Zeke. Nobody is of his stature. So what am I saying to us? Average Nigerian, listen to me. Chaos engineering is very simple. All you need is what they call algorithms. Algorithms are simple to apply. The war of narratives is it. If I give us 5 sentences that we want Nigerians to repeat for 1 week, and every Nigerian who has a fear of God, godly, goodly Nigerian, who hasn't eaten too much fried plantain. See, if we repeat it for just 1 week, you will see walls crumbling and a new nation will begin to emerge, especially those under 35. We want to come to a time when children will beg their parents and tell their dad that, look, you sent me to school, I thank you. I know your salary. If I multiply your salary by 200 years, we can't afford the things you are buying in this house. Is it fair for I, as your child, to be driving a Lamborghini in school where people cannot eat food in the same country? We conscientize people. And I can tell you, Nigerians are good people. We will make it. We have an appointment with destiny. We are the Redeemer Nation of Africa. So this is the reason I'm telling you why we are keeping Nigeria together. We will surmount all these problems. We will rescue a lot of the young children all over northern Nigeria. A short, hopeless life. Go to Kano. Go and see them. Is this what a nation should be doing under the pretext of religion? No. No. We will level the playing field. It's not about religion. God is a good God. And Nigeria is destined to be the Redeemer Nation of Africa. And we will make it by God's grace.
Amen. Thank you, Rev Ladi Thompson. I don't think there's anybody that listened to you today that will not buy into what you're saying. Nigeria needs help. I'm sure a lot of the political leadership will probably think, what's this man? This is a lot of gibberish. But then it's common knowledge that the country is way, way, way behind schedule. I mean,
how many of them have been in places where I've been, where the legs fly over the wall, a human leg? How many of them have seen bombs smoking? How many of them have seen the bellies of pregnant women ripped open? How many of them have had to console men whose daughters are abducted and raped continuously by beasts? How many of them?
Well, our prayer remains that, to all our viewers, the prayer remains that Nigeria gets better. Nigeria seizes this opportunity. There's a lot wrong. A fantastic example is our votes don't count. And that's why I think the good Reverend was talking about that systemic help. That's what Nigeria really needs, so that we can analyze our problem empirically, build our institution, so that when all is said and done, when every good person has done their bit and you die, the institution will still work. Thank you, Reverend, once again. I'm sure I'm going to bring you back, possibly in another month or two. I'm sure there'll be a lot to discuss very much then. And thank you very much. God bless you. Enjoy your holiday. It's Christmas time. I know you are very, very busy. We've been discussing this for so long, trying to get ourselves together. I know you're always in one meeting or the other. I pray God gives you good health. I pray your lifetime, you see the Nigeria of your desire. I know it's not easy. I know how bad you feel, where a lot of us are not happy, but it is what it is. My clarion call to the diasporas are that we don't need political appointments. You can't live in America and be educated and think that there's more money at home. Nigeria just needs to be reorganized. Where we work here, we don't do all those things because the system works. So that's my clarion call. Let's see what will happen. And Reverend, thank you once again. God bless you. To all our viewers, it's a wrap there. See you next week, Friday. Bye.